Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take your sources, distill the key knowledge, and hopefully make you feel well-informed without all the overwhelm. Today we're embarking on, a really fascinating deep dive into a book of the Bible that sounds maybe deceptively simple. Numbers.
Yeah, it's easy to just glance at that title, Numbers, right? And assume it's all about counting, maybe some dry historical record. But our source material for today, this really captivating YouTube explanation called The Book of Numbers Explained a Journey Through the Wilderness, it shows it's anything but dry. It's actually a profound story. Struggle, faith, God's relentless presence. It's a very raw account of Israel's 40-year journey through the wilderness.
That's right. And that's what we want to unpack today. What this ancient story meant for the Israelites back then, and maybe, even more surprisingly, what it could mean for you navigating your own wilderness seasons today. We'll explore how this book, far from just being a census, really lays out a kind of blueprint, for living a life centered on God, enduring hardship, choosing faith over fear. Okay, let's jump into this. So, the Book of Numbers kicks off, maybe surprisingly, with a census. Now, on the surface, that sounds maybe a bit bureaucratic. What did our source reveal about the deeper meaning there?
Well, what's really fascinating, and the source makes this clear, is that this wasn't just about logistics, like getting a head count. Sure. God wasn't simply counting heads just to know how many people were there for the march. He was fundamentally declaring something much bigger, that every single person, every tribe was seen, belonged, and had a vital role in his grand plan.
Ah, okay.
So it totally reframes a simple census, doesn't it? It becomes this powerful statement of identity, of purpose. Mm-hmm. It really sets the stage for, an epic adventure.
So after establishing that sense of belonging with the census, what's the next step? How does God prepare them? The source talks about this incredible blueprint for their camp.
Yes.
Placing the tabernacle, that's portable sanctuary, right? His physical presence smack bang in the middle.
Exactly. And it wasn't just generally in the middle. Every tribe, every family, every single tent was instructed to face towards the tabernacle.
Wow.
Which meant their entire lives, literally, revolved around God's presence. It wasn't just practical for, organization. It was this daily, visible reminder. God has to be the center of everything.
A constant visual cue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there.
And their guidance was visible too. A pillar of cloud by day, fire by night. When God moved, they moved. When he stayed, they stayed. This whole rhythm, travel, rest, their direction, it all depended entirely on God's visible presence leading them. It's a profound lesson in surrender and trust for them and, for us too.
Okay, so you'd think, right, people freshly rescued from slavery, seeing God provide miraculously every day, you'd expect them to be just overflowing with gratitude. But the wilderness story quickly takes a turn. Grumbling, complaining. How does the source explain that sudden shift? What was really behind that discontent? Yeah,
it does raise a pretty important question for all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What happens when we face discomfort? The Israelites started complaining about the food, the hardship, even, saying they missed Egypt.
Unbelievable.
The source makes it really clear, though. Their grumbling wasn't just about being hungry or uncomfortable. It was deeper. It was fundamental lack of trust in God's goodness and his ability to actually provide for them. And these complaints, they spread like wildfire through the camp, undermining faith, grieving God. It even led to open opposition against Moses.
Wow.
And the consequences were serious. Real delays, divine judgment, and ultimately that whole generation missing out on God's promise. Their story is a powerful warning for us, isn't it? Don't let discomfort, don't let hardship blind you to God's faithfulness. He's still there.
Okay, so after all that, they finally arrive. They're right there, on the edge of the promised land. And here, in what should be this moment of triumph, comes this pivotal test that just changes everything. Sending in the 12 spies. And the land. It's exactly what God promised. Fertile, abundant. But 10 of those spies only see the problems. Giants, fortified cities.
Right. And fear, as the source really emphasizes, just completely takes over. They come back saying, we felt like grasshoppers next to them. And that fear, it spreads like a disease through the people. They rebel. They want to go back to Egypt.
Incredible after everything.
Only 2, Joshua and Caleb, saw it differently. They saw with faith. They proclaimed, look, if God is with us, we can absolutely take the land.
Yeah.
But the crowd, they listened to the 10 voices of fear, not the 2 of faith.
And the result?
An entire generation barred from entering the promised land. 40 years of wandering in the wilderness because of 40 days of doubt and fear.
40 years for 40 days. That's stark.
It really jumps out, doesn't it? How those 40 days of fear directly led to 40 years of wandering. It's a brutal reminder, really, of how one decision rooted in unbelief can dramatically change everything for a whole generation. And Joshua and Caleb, they didn't stand out because the giants suddenly looked smaller to them. They stood out because their God looked bigger.
That's the key.
Yeah. The lesson seems clear. Focus on God's promise, not the obstacles. Fear paralyzes. It delays destiny. Faith moves us forward.
But even with all the wandering, the hardship, the repeated rebellion, God's grace keeps breaking through, doesn't it? Even when he has to discipline them, we see these powerful examples of his provision, his mercy. What did the source highlight there?
Oh, absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, God's mercy, it really shines through in some pretty unexpected ways. Like, remember when the people grumbled again and fiery serpents were sent as a consequence? Even then, God immediately provides a way out, a path to healing. He tells Moses to make a bronze serpent, put it on a pole, and tells the people simply to look and live. It was a test of faith for sure, but also this incredible foreshadowing of the cross, wasn't it? Where salvation comes by looking up, trusting God's provision. And centuries later, Jesus himself points right back to this specific moment. He says, just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man, meaning himself, be lifted up.
Amazing connection.
And then there's that, well, frankly, wild story of Balaam, this non-Israelite prophet hired by an enemy king specifically to curse Israel.
Right, the talking donkey incident.
Exactly. God intervenes in this almost comical way, making Balaam's own donkey talk to him to block his path. God literally turns Balaam's intended curses into blessings. It powerfully demonstrates that what God chooses to bless, no person, no power can actually curse. So God uses the unexpected, right? A bronze serpent, a talking donkey. It shows his unstoppable grace. He's always working for his people, sometimes even behind the scenes, and they don't realize it.
So after 40 long years, a new generation finally stands on the edge of the promised land. A generation that grew up in the wilderness, learning, hopefully, from both the failures and the enduring faith of those who came before them.
Yeah, and a second census, as our source points out, marks this new beginning. God's promise is finally about to be fulfilled. Moses, who was so faithful but also flawed like all of us, passes the leadership mantle to Joshua. And Joshua is really portrayed as the man of faith needed for this next stage.
Right.
Moses gets to see the land, glimpse it from Mount Nebo, which is, well, it's a bittersweet end to his incredible journey, isn't it?
It really is.
But it's Joshua now. He's the one who will lead this new generation forward into battles, yes, but also into the promise, into a completely new chapter for Israel.
So bringing it all together, what does this ancient story, this journey through Numbers, ultimately mean for us today as we navigate our own lives, our own faith?
Well, Numbers isn't just ancient history, is it? In many ways, it's our story, too. We all face wilderness seasons, those times of waiting, of testing, of deep uncertainty, and the choice really is always ours. Are we going to grumble and look back, longing for some imagined past? Or are we going to choose to trust God and keep moving forward, even when it's hard?
Yeah.
The wilderness, despite all its challenges, maybe even because of them, is precisely where faith gets forged, where our character is shaped and deepened.
That's a great point. The book of Numbers really reminds us that God is faithful even when we stumble, even when we mess up. It feels like a powerful call to keep our eyes fixed on him, to trust his provision even when it looks different than we expect, and to bravely step into whatever promise he has for you.
Exactly. The same God who led Israel through that wilderness all those centuries ago, he leads us still right into our own promised land, whatever that looks like for each of us.
A great thought to ponder as you navigate your own journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.